What's up everyone? So this video is long overdue. Today's video is intended to give you a bit of an insight into who I was as a student, as a pre-medical student. And the way I'm going to do that is I'm actually going to walk you through my entire AMCAS application. And I know I've done a video like this before. Click up there to see it. But last time I did the video, I censored out a lot of my application. This time I'm going to uncensor out certain things, including my GPA, my MCAT, all of that stuff, because this is actually the uncensored version that I've been sending around. A lot of people have been asking for my application and I've been sending it, and that's what's been helpful. I'm getting so many requests nowadays that it is impossible for me to keep up. So I figured, why not make a video about it? And hopefully then everyone can just have access to it. So here it is. Let's get into it. This is who I was as a pre-med student. This is going to be exciting, reflecting back, because I'm pretty much 2 years into med school now, and wow, it's been a while. So side note, I start my clerkships tomorrow, which means I'm going to be in the hospital for a whole year starting tomorrow, and that was another reason I wanted to look over my original application, because I thought, I was like, damn, I've come so far, and it's so important to remember where I came from. So hopefully me going through this will give you more insight into the type of student I was, will maybe even give you ideas about things that you should be doing. It will give you some insight into what you can improve on, and ultimately at the end of the day, also make you closer to me as a person, and hopefully get you to know me a bit more and know my story. So I hope you guys enjoy. Let's do it. All right, so this is the front page of the application. I'm not going to spend time discussing stuff I've already discussed in my previous video, so make sure you watch that video already if you haven't. But basically in that video, I talked a bit about the submission date and how that's different from the process date. You should go back and watch that video. I still have the front page of this application blurred out because that is my contact information and my address, my legal name, all of that stuff. But I don't want anyone showing up anywhere, so I just have blurred it all out. This is now the second page. The second page also has a lot more personal information that I still have blanked out because I do not want anyone to know that stuff about me unless, you know, we get to know each other and we're friends. But random people on the internet, I don't know about that. But basically the point is, this second page is more, again, background information, disadvantaged information, are you socioeconomically disadvantaged, and stuff like that. And then this is the third page. The third page is all about your siblings. Do you have siblings? I do have siblings, so this page was about them. It is also about military experience. If you've been in the military before, I hadn't. It's about felonies, if you've had those. It's about, as you can see here, previous matriculation. So if you've been involved anywhere else, that's there. The part I do want to focus on now is my grade. So this is my academic record, starting from my first semester at UC Berkeley all the way through. You can feel free to look at that. That's all my past now. But you'll notice how you do have to put in every single grade that you've ever gotten. You have to put in if the class is pass-fail. You have to put in if it's a letter grade. You have to put in the number of units. But the point is, my grades are all on here, and I'm going to go through them. This is the second page of my academic record. It's still all on here. It's all behind me now. And again, as I said, grades don't define you. They've never defined me. I just study because I like studying, and I study for the sake of studying. And believe it or not, it actually ended up doing really well for me, and I ended up doing really well in a lot of these classes. But the point is, everything does go on here, including AP classes. That's something that some people think doesn't go on here. AP classes did go on here for me. The letter grade doesn't, but the AP class credits do. This is page now 5, more classes, and I think I'll get to my GPA at the end of this. See, I have organic chemistry up here, organic chemistry lab, multivariable calculus, physiology, all of that stuff. You'll also notice I had some honors research in here. So I had research that I took for a letter grade, and I got that for page 6, the end of my academics, and these are all 4 years. And you'll notice again, pass, fail, letter grade, everything is included on here, includes every single class I took. Everything like that will go on your AMCAS application. But to summarize pretty much all of my education, I think it will be summarized here in the sense that I had a 3.96 GPA out of 4.0, a 3.99 science GPA. I actually think if you go back and count, there were more like A pluses than A's. And the reason for that is because, as I told you, I study for the sake of learning. I don't actually study to get the best grade possible. And ironically, that actually ends up giving me the best grade possible. But the point is, I really enjoyed my time. I had a good time. And I did it at UC Berkeley, and I also did some research there. So that's my academic performance. And that's the type of academic person I was, but I'm going to go a bit more into this in detail because just because the letter grades on there show one thing doesn't necessarily mean that I was always smart, that I always got it. I actually don't think I'm smart at all, as you already know. I also don't think I ever get it on the first try. And more important than that, I actually had a lot of mental health issues. I'm pretty sure I was depressed. I pretty much was holed up in my room. I was sleeping less than 3 hours a night. You can ask my roommate all of this. There was a lot going on. And I kid you not when I say like the grades look great, but my first 2 years at UC Berkeley were hell. And they were hell because I just struggled with a lot of academic pressures. I struggled with imposter syndrome. I struggled with really even figuring out if medicine was for me because I didn't think I could handle it. So even though the letter grades show one thing, I do want you to know there was a lot of internal struggle there. And I think you can ask anyone who was close to me. Those times were really, really, really bad for me. But I learned a lot because of them, and I'm stronger because of them. Oh, there it is. Okay, so my MCAT score was a 37 on the old MCAT. That was a 14 on the physical sciences, 14 on biological sciences, and 9 in verbal reasoning. I suck so bad at reading. But the point is, that's my MCAT. I took it at the end of my sophomore year because it was changing, and I was like, I just want to get it done with. And because I had built up such a strong scientific background, it actually ended up going pretty well. And so that was my academics, my GPA, and my MCAT. But now let's talk a bit more about the experiences that I did in undergrad. And this is where it'll be really interesting to show you the types of activities you can engage in. So this top one is the fact that I shadowed at UCSF. I shadowed a cardiothoracic surgeon, and I kind of talked a bit about that. I want you guys to make sure you look at the way I write about a lot of these experiences. I write about them saying what I did and how I think it will be meaningful in med school. And I think that's a really good format to follow. You want to talk about a bit what you did, and you want to then talk a bit about how exactly you can apply that to medical school. Because if you just talk about what you did and you don't apply it, it's kind of odd, and it's like, where is this going? So this is my shadowing. This is my second one, which was the fact that I was a health advocate at a community service center, and I basically worked with patients one-on-one. So this was more patient interaction. The one above it is shadowing. Shadowing is different from patient interaction because shadowing means you're following a doctor. My second one was more about patient experiences and actually interacting with patients. And in this case, I was addressing the social disparities of health in Oakland, and that's what this one was about. This is my third experience here. I created my own course where I actually taught molecular biology techniques to undergrads at UC Berkeley, and that course is actually still going on at UC Berkeley. And so that's really cool. It makes me really excited that I was able to create something, and that's something that's still going on. Another thing I did was research. So one of my research projects was about using CRISPR-Cas9 to genetically edit C. elegans embryos to understand the mechanism of dosage compensation in C. elegans, and I talked a bit about that here, and that was one of my research projects. I also did another research project where I used CRISPR-Cas9 to actually modify the CRISPR-Cas9 system to potentially enter into the mitochondrial enter through the mitochondria and actually edit the mitochondrial membrane. And that was another one of my research projects that I did over a summer at City of Hope. So you'll notice here I actually have 2 research entries, and I have a third one coming up. But the point is you can have multiple research entries because one of these was just a research lab. This one was actually a poster presentation. I created a poster about it, and therefore it actually qualified as a different experience. I want you guys to make sure you think about things like that. Whenever you do research, you want to not only be able to say you did it, but also have something you can pull from it, whether that's a poster presentation, whether that's an abstract, whether that's an actual publication, because all of those can count as different categories on the actual AMCAS application and actually potentially even benefit you as long as you know what you're talking about. If you don't know about your research and someone asks you about it on your interview, regardless of if you got a publication, regardless of if you got a poster, regardless of if you actually did something crazy, if you can't talk about it and you can't explain it like I just did briefly, you're pretty much not going to be seen that greatly. So even if you have some great stuff on paper, you better know how to elaborate that come interview time because they will ask you about it. All right. This one is most meaningful experience. So if you go back to my previous video that I've made about this application, I'll tell you about the most meaningful experience. 3 of the 15 activities you enter can be your most meaningful, which means they give you a bit more space to write about it. Here you'll see that I actually wrote a bit more about it. And this was actually a publication that I was a part of when I was an undergrad. I was actually 4th author. I didn't do anything that substantial. I actually didn't even know what was going on that much. But the point was I learned enough from this project that I did the latter 2 projects that you just saw on the previous pages. So this was actually a stepping stone for me because it got me really interested in research. It actually told me dude, you need to take this a lot more seriously than you're taking it. And so because I ended up being a part of the publication, I had to read up on it. I had to understand what was going on. I had to figure out what was going on. And in this lab, I basically learned the basics of molecular biology that I then implemented in creating a course to teach the basics of molecular biology at UC Berkeley. And that course is actually called A Primer on Molecular Biology, and that's still going strong there. And again, notice that this experience is different from the other two because it's a publication. It's not a poster, and it's not just a research experience. It was an actual publication that's out there, and therefore it counted as a different spot. Okay, so my next activity here is actually the fact that I actually taught for Kaplan my gap year, and that was actually one of the things I did. I taught ACT, I taught SAT, I taught MCAT. I actually even ended up teaching GRE. The point was I love teaching. I love teaching. You're going to see that moving forward, and so that was another one of the things that I wanted to put on my application because this was paid employment, the fact that I actually learned enough that I could actually get paid for it, and that was what I did. So then, this is actually really important. This is a slot on my category that's hobbies, and that's because I love playing basketball. I played basketball for most of my life, and then I also played intramural basketball at UC Berkeley, and I actually ruptured my tendon last year. So I still have been playing basketball. I'm slowly getting back on the court, but the point was a big part of my application was showing the reader that I was a human being with hobbies that loved playing basketball, loved playing frisbee, and I love running, and that was actually a part of my application right there. This one, the Student Learning Center, is something that's at UC Berkeley, and that was another one of my most meaningful experiences because I actually taught biology, I taught chemistry, and because I taught it there, first of all, I got paid for it, and second of all, that really brought out this passion in me for teaching and learning. I love both of those things, and if you read this description right here, you'll see the fact that I actually talked about that this opportunity made me realize I love learning. It made me realize I need a career where I can continually learn more and more, and that actually was one of the reasons I wanted to be a physician. If you go back and read the descriptions of each one of these activities, I almost inevitably try to link it back to why I want to be a physician, because I think it's important for that you know that when you do an activity, you want to learn something from it and then apply how that lesson can be helpful for you as a physician, and that kind of is what I did there. All right, I'm almost done. So this activity right here was my last most meaningful activity, and this was called Peers Espousing Amiability, Cooperation, and Education. This was an organization that I co-founded at UC Berkeley, and it's still there, and it was pretty much geared toward providing students help from other students. UC Berkeley is a scary place. As I told you, my first 2 years there were really dark. I actually felt really depressed. I felt like I was alone. I felt like I didn't have support, and I created this organization in my latter 2 years in the hopes that any student who found themselves in my shoes could help. And basically, when I created it as a way to provide free tutoring for students. I created a way to provide free advising to students. I actually created it with one of my best friends there, and the organization is still going strong. We created a website that got a bunch of hits, and basically the organization was a culmination of all of my experiences at Berkeley and the fact that I really learned a lot from there. I went through hard times, but I reflected on them, and I wanted to better other students' experiences at Berkeley because of it, and so I created this. And I linked it back to medicine because, one, it really taught me that whatever you learn, you have to kind of push back and try to help others with your knowledge, right? And two, it reinforced this idea that when you go through something, it's important that you work on it together with other people. This aspect of collaboration and not competition. And that was something that I really felt strongly about. And the fact is, medicine is all about that, and that's why I really love medicine. And so that's kind of what that experience was about. And so now I think we're finishing up here. I was also a TA for a College of Chemistry course, so I kind of wrote that in. I also ended up helping create a lot of the labs that ended up going into development for Chemistry 1A, which is the freshman course that most chemistry students take at UC Berkeley. And I did that as a junior. I helped create a lot of the labs that the first years did. And then I also ended up being a TA for a personal professor who ended up writing my letter of rec and is still to this day one of the biggest mentors I ever had. And all of these things together were activities that I all wrote about. And so now, last but not least, the awards section. I get a lot of questions about this. I took all of the awards I got and kind of clumped them all together in one thing. Basically, I talked about my high school experience, I talked a bit about the awards I got at UC Berkeley, and I talked a bit about the fact that I was academically doing well, but I also wanted to make sure they knew that I did some research. So I have some research awards in there, I have some academic awards in there, and then basically just wanted to have all of those in one place because I didn't want to make multiple categories for multiple awards because I just thought okay, let's just put them all in one place. So those are my awards. And then basically Cal Rotaract is a service organization. I did community service for my first 2 years in college. I was really into that, and that's right here. And pretty much After that is my personal statement, which I still have taken out because I don't want people to read that. That's pretty personal to me. But if you come by, we get to know each other. I'm more than happy to share that with you. I just don't want that information about me out there. And with all that being said, these are all the schools that I ended up applying to. And obviously, I now go to Yale. So hopefully this was a very helpful video for you all to tell you the type of student I was. This was by no means intended to intimidate anyone, by no means intended to alienate anyone. I want you to see the type of student I was. One, I want you to know that I went through a lot of challenges in college. But the point was I was able to reflect on them and hopefully create things that other people could benefit from because of my challenges. I realized that there was this gap, there was this need. The fact that I felt the way that I did in my first 2 years at Berkeley, the fact that I felt alienated, the fact that I felt imposter syndrome, the fact that I felt incompetent, I wanted to make sure that no student felt like that again. It's an ambitious goal, and I'm sure it's not solved today, but I wanted to reflect on that by creating peace. And then in my lab experience, for example, I sucked so bad in my first lab that I was just like, what am I doing? And then eventually when my postdoc was like, hey, if you want to be on this publication, get your shit together. I was like, fine, I did. I got all my stuff together. And then I realized, man, if only I had learned all of this stuff through someone else, it would have been better. And so I created that course, a primer on molecular biology, to help students learn the same things I had to learn the hard way. So I just wanted to hopefully tell you guys a bit more about my personal journey to where I am. I always try to take meaning out of the experiences I do. I take pride in failing. I failed multiple times. I failed time and time again. I tell you, my letter grades are not a reflection of me as a person. My letter grades, if anything, are a reflection of my experiences and the hardships and the amount of dedication I have. You can ask anyone. I slept less than 4 hours a night every single day in undergrad. And because I was grinding harder than I think anyone else can even imagine. I would freak out moments before the test because I have massive testing anxiety. But the point being, this is just some culmination of who I am today. And tomorrow I start my clerkship year at Yale. And I thought this would be a great way to reflect back on where I've come from, because it's so important to remember your roots, so important to remember the type of person you are. And hopefully this all helped you guys see the type of person I am, and I'm more than happy to entertain any questions. But I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Please like, comment, share, and subscribe. And I'll see you guys in the next video. I really appreciate everything you guys do. And reach out to me on Instagram, DM me, follow me. I really appreciate it. All right, guys, see you in the next video. Peace.